Almost 1,000 years ago, the body of St. Cuthbert was carried by the monks from Lindisfarne to Durham, seeking shelter from the elements and refuge from the Danish invaders. Necessity, the mother of invention, led the monks to devise and develop the scientific means, the artistic imagination, and crucially, the immense physical labour force needed to quarry and hew 400,000 tons of rock, transport it and then construct this vast cathedral. Thus it could be said that the cathedral is as much a monument to the collective creativity of man as a monument to God. But the rock that has tested the men of Durham's collective creative genius to the limit is coal. In 1913, the peak year, 165,000 Durham miners produced 41.5 million tons of coal. The first Durham coal was being mined over 2,000 years ago, in Roman times, and during the 16th century, the first deep mines were sunk to provide coal for growing industries such as gunpowder making, and the manufacture of commodities such as glass, paper, sugar and soap. But it was the Industrial Revolution of the 18th and 19th centuries that brought coal mining to its zenith and made it the pivot around which the new heavy industries grew and thrived. And with the coal came the coal owners, known as the coal kings, and with the coal kings came naked, shameless, direct, brutal exploitation.
Down we go, we're very, very low, to the hell of the deep sunk mine. We gather the proudest gems that glow when the brow of a despot shines. Whenever he knocks upon our backs, fresh loads he'll deign to lay. We're far too low to vote the tax, but not too low to pay.
The natural response of the miners was to get organised. In 1844, the Durham miners went on strike against their appalling conditions. 4 months into the strike, Frederick Engels wrote, "Notice to quit was served on the workers, and in a week the whole 40,000 were put out of doors. The homeless miners remained unmoved, set up their household goods upon the moors or the harvested fields, and held out. Thus they lived out 8 weeks and more of the wet fag end of last summer under the open sky with their families, with no further shelter for themselves and their little ones than the calico curtains of their beds." The strike was eventually broken by the coal king Lord Londonderry bringing in labour from outside. Praising the Durham miners, Engels continued, "This 19-week strike had torn the miners of the north of England forever from the intellectual death in which they had hitherto lain. They have left their sleep, are alert to defend their interests, and have entered the movement of civilization, and especially the movement of the workers."
Jowl, jowl, and listen, lad, you'll hear that coal face walking. There's
By the 1840s, it was already apparent that if the rising working class were to emancipate itself, it must have its own organisation and its own political programme. This programme became embodied in the 6 points of the People's Charter. Through the Chartist movement, in which the workers of the North East played a significant role, the first serious attempt was made by the different sections of the class to harmonise and coordinate their various interests and to build their own party. The Chartist movement was eventually put down, but the struggle continued through the development of new trade unions. The Durham Miners' Association was formed in 1869 and amalgamated with the Miners' Federation of Great Britain in 1892. In 1915, the miners opened their own imposing, purpose-built headquarters, RedHills.
The place is steeped in history, and it's played an integral part in the role of the miners and their communities since it was built. A very imposing building that used to have an effect on the coal owners when they would come here to discuss, prior to nationalisation, the terms and conditions of miners working in their pits. It was a building that was just as impressive as anything that they had, and it was a demonstration, if you like, of the attitude that the miners had at that time, that they were forward-looking and wanted to progress in terms of how they represented the miner at work.
Jowl, jowl, and listen, lad, you'll hear that cold face walking. There's many a man missing, lad, because he wouldn't listen, lad. Me father always used to say, it walks more than human. You've got to coax the coal along and not be rhyming and chewing. So jowl, jowl, and listen, lad, you'll hear that cold face walking. There's many a mother missing, lad, because he wouldn't listen, lad.
There was this 5-shift system where you worked, you started at 11 o'clock at night, the next shift was 3:45 in the morning, the next shift 8:30, you had a shift at 1 o'clock and a shift at 6 o'clock. It was very hard work, very heavy work, heavy manual labour. There was a lot of heat in the different panels with the amount of machinery it was in. Threw a lot of heat off them. The high cure gradually ran out and we're working seams 40 to 42 inches, going down to about 35 inches, where it was a lot harder. Men were crawling up and down the face, maybe 6-7 times a shift, crawling 200 yards after the machine. Other men drawing chocks in, and other men keeping up with the ends of the face.
With the Industrial Revolution, production became social, and people became the responsibility not just of the family, but of the whole society. In recognition of this, the basis of trade union organisation is that the interests and well-being of the individual rests on the interests and well-being of the collective.
Many historic debates and discussions have taken place, obviously, inside these walls, particularly the 1921 lockout, the 1926 general strike, and recently the 1972 and 74 stoppages, and of course the 1984-5 miners' dispute, which lasted for some 12 months. And of course some of those debates would have been in a true tradition of discussions and debates inside the miners' union. And I'm certain at times there have been a lot of heated discussion and arguments which have been extolled upon. But at the end of the day, there was one thing which always came out of the decisions taken inside of these chambers, that there would be a united front fighting across the coalfield for whatever the ultimate decision would have been.
Sitting here today brings back some very happy memories of meetings that I attended in this hall over a period of quite a few years. I think it would be 1977 when I first attended here as the delegate of the Westall Mechanics. In those days we didn't have an NUM Northeast area as we know it today. It was split up into 3 areas, a Durham area, a Northumberland area and a Group 1 area. In Group 1 there was the Durham Mechanics and Northumberland Mechanics and Durham Enginemen. In those days there would be 30-something delegates from 30-odd mechanics branches, and sadly today there is 4 mechanics branches left, and as everyone will be aware, those pits are now closed, have ceased production, and in a matter of time they will be completely closed. As time moved on, I left this seat, which used to be my regularly used seat as the Westall representative, and I was fortunate and quite privileged to be elected to the Executive Committee of the Durham Quarry Mechanics Association. The format in those days was that the President and General Secretary and the 6 executive members would occupy the platform, and in that period of office I would always sit on the end seat. And I think I was first elected to office of executive member in 1977. Sorry, that was delegate, it would be 1979, 2 years after that. Following that, again, I was privileged to be appointed by the members to act as president of the association. The president would sit here and again conduct the business of the association and its members. There would be times when meetings would be scheduled for a day, and because of the in-depth discussion and the importance of the business, we would find as the afternoon wore on that we'd have no alternative but to adjourn and come back the following day to continue the discussions. So things were not dealt with in a light-hearted manner, but indeed in the serious way in which the business had to be conducted, because obviously we were discussing matters that affected the welfare, the wages and working conditions of people who we were representing, and obviously quick decisions invariably tend to be bad decisions.
The provision for the welfare and security of its members has always been a fundamental plank of the union's work.
Unions achieve everything. You know, the baths, as you say, pithead baths, travelling time to and from work, the length of shifts. It's all attributed to the fight from the union.
This concern of the union is strongly represented in the miners' culture, especially the banners.
The picture on the banner, Conishead Priory, was a convalescent home that was owned by the Federation Board, an organisation representing all of the mining unions in the county of Durham. There would be the Durham Miners, Durham Mechanics, Durham Enginemen, Knackards, COSA and the Cokemen. And you will find the Conishead Priory displayed on quite a few banners. It was we were very, very proud of our convalescent facilities. As you can see, there's dozens of banners stored here in RedHills. Some of them in very bad condition because of their age, and it would be impossible to ever take them out and parade them. But there is a desire that they can be restored, repaired, and maybe hung up somewhere where people can see them and maybe reflect upon the history of the coalfield. I think most people, rather than see the banners vanish to some other part of the country to be put in storage somewhere or displayed somewhere, would prefer to see them go back into the community, into the places where the pits actually were, and maybe fathers and grandfathers of people would have worked at those pits, and then may become some focal point and indeed some talking point, some point of interest in the future. At this precise moment in time, I'm not really sure what the final decision will be as to where they go, who gets them, who restores them. But yes, people have shown an interest in this, and from my own personal point of view, I would like to see them displayed back in the villages where they originated from.
old days, the quarry used to own everything from the corner shop, the town mayor and everything. They had them all in the pocket, so they built communities in them days solely to feed the workforce that was required at the quarry. As time going by and the unions got strong on that, and we rebelled against this, and obviously in 1950 when nationalisation took over, the community still remained in place, but the attitude or the living standards, etc., changed within the communities. People had more say in which direction they wanted to go. For although there were still more or less picked communities, everybody sort of knew everybody else. Everybody worked at the local quarry. It was a different environment altogether. Somebody telling you what to do was opposed to you having a free rein or being able to command your own destiny. I think the government of the day had some sort of obligation to the communities of these where they had sprung up around the quarries to maintain the fabric of the communities, because obviously if you take the sole work centre away from the community and you don't replace it by anything, obviously the community will collapse.
There was almost a siege mentality. The police seen, rightly or wrongly, as an army of occupation, breaking down the defences of already shattered pit communities. Once peaceful villages felt threatened, as if an occupying force was spoiling for a fight.
It started off dead peaceful. We marched from Sheffield to Orgreave along the motorway, and there was about 6,000 of us from Durham, Northumberland, and a load of Welsh lads, and just walking up the motorway, singing. Everybody was just a big day out. This is 6 o'clock in the morning, and the same lads coming back were battered, was covered in blood. There was loads missing, either locked up or in hospital and all that. And it took me about a week to get over it, shaking like a leaf. I can remember physically shaking after getting chased through the fields with the coppers and the horses and all that. And the same police were enjoying it, were laughing. Like, I was getting changed, I could hear them shouting, "Cut them off," and they were killing themselves laughing because I was tumbling over the grass. And I would have gotten, well, I wouldn't say murdered, but I would have gotten badly hurt if it wasn't for a load of Welsh miners charging down the field with sticks and getting stuck into the police. There was a big massive march in Glasgow, and we went there. And one of the things what really it sat back, I was nearly crying with pride, is all the firemen went on strike that day, and all the firemen marched through. There was miners from Wales, Scotland, over, and we were received just like gods. And I thought to myself, well, the amount of people were turning out that day, we couldn't have been in the wrong, being on strike. We couldn't have been in the wrong when there was nurses, firemen, just all professional people. You tend to think it's your own kind from your own community, like back. But it was people from the bus strike, the buses were getting. There wasn't a bus to be getting for about 5 hours. People just were parking the buses, getting off and joining the march. And that's what made me realise we were right, we weren't doing wrong.
Even the silence of the place gives you that feeling of history and struggle.
Is turning, changing with the seasons of the year. Flowers grow where once the earth was cold and bare. Streams feed the rivers feed the sea, and the strength of my friends will feed the change in me. And there is no going back, we're too deep in it now. No going back, there is no limit now. No going back, you've struck the winning now. No going back. Since the miners' strike has ended, a new life has begun. We're different women after all we've seen and done. We've learned the world's divided, and we have made our choice. We may have lost a battle, but we found a voice. And there is no going back, we're too deep in it now. No going back, there is no limit now. No going back, you struck the winning now. No going back. Alone I'm going nowhere, but with friends here at my side, we'll face a bitter future and the storm will ride. We'll finish what we started, go on as we begin. We've only chance to lose and all the world to win. And there is no going back.